The movie starts with John Kramer getting an MRI scan at a hospital. He also attends a support group, and after the scan, the doctor tells him that he should retire from his work as he has only a few months to live, but John insists that he has so many work to done. After that, he leaves. While he is leaving from the hospital, he sees a janitor trying to steal a patient's belongings. The janitor later wakes up in a trap set by John, with his hands stuck in a machine and 2 vacuum tubes connected to his eyes. He has 60 seconds to turn a dial that will break all 5 fingers on his right hand one by one, or his eyes will be sucked out by the tubes. He only manages to break 3 fingers before the timer runs out and his eyes are sucked out. However, the trap scene is revealed to have been entirely in John's imagination, and the janitor puts back the patient's belongings after noticing John watching him. At a support group for cancer patients, John meets Henry Kessler, who says he has terminal cancer and promises to fight it until the end. For months later, a grieving John is in a coffee shop, ready to sign his last will, when he sees a much healthier-looking Henry. Henry mentioned he had stage 4 pancreatic cancers, but now he shows John a surgical scar and explains that an experimental procedure cured him. John then asks him if this procedure available here. Henry says no, and shares details about Norwegian Dr. Finn Peterson, who developed the procedure. Although Henry does not know much about the doctor's location, he gives the doctor website link to contact him. After this, John comes home and starts researching about the doctor. After researching, John discovers the website of Dr. Cecilia Peterson, who is carrying on her father's work and asserts that corrupt pharmaceutical companies have targeted him, compelling her to conduct further clinical trials of the treatment in secret. He then sends an email to her and she directly calls him, who directs him to her improvised clinic in Mexico City for a surgery in 2 weeks. John travels to Mexico City and, upon arriving, he meets a taxi driver, Diego, who gives him a tour of the city. A van intercepts the cab, and 2 armed men emerge, forcing John out. He identifies himself, and they take him to the clinic, which looks like a large mansion. There, he meets Gabriella, who says she was cured by Cecilia's treatment. After this, Cecilia arrives and welcomes him. She then takes him to the operation room located in an abandoned chemical plant, where John meets with Cecilia's assistants, Mateo and Valentina. Before his surgery, John talks with Parker Sears, who has recently had a similar procedure. He appears to be happy with the procedure and wishes good luck to John. The night, John wakes up and notices a neighbor boy, Carlos, attempting to repair his bicycle. John lends a hand and treats the boy kindly. Later, John undergoes the procedure, which Cecilia explains will cause him to drift in and out of consciousness. He later wakes up to find Cecilia congratulating him and reassurance that the surgery went well, feeling like he's beaten his cancer and now has a fresh start on life. John then informs her that he will pay second half of the payment by tomorrow. Before departing, John visits a liquor store to purchase a bottle of tequila as a gesture of gratitude for Gabriella. When he returns to the clinic, he discovers it deserted. Investigating further, he heads to the operating room where the surgery was supposed to happen, only to uncover evidence that the entire procedure was a sham and he was swindled out of his money. John realizes that the surgery never actually took place. His brain tumor was never removed and the experimental treatment was an elaborate scam. He also realizes that the doctor, who was doing his surgery, was a taxi driver, Diego. Enraged, he smashes the bottle in frustration and starts contacting his connections as he plans to seek revenge. John tracks down Diego and kidnaps him. He puts him in a trap where he must cut out 2 pipe bombs that have been wired into his arms. Despite his reluctance, Diego starts cutting into his arms, tearing through his flesh painfully, but manages to remove the bombs before they explode, saving himself. John commends him for his survival and then calls one of his men to help him, locating others. Outside of their scheme, Valentina works as a prostitute. She attempts to swindle a man out of money, but he nearly assaults her until Amanda Young, wearing her pig mask, intervenes, knocking out the attacker and abducting Valentina. Meanwhile, Gabriella is depicted as a drug addict, with Mateo serving as her supplier. Both are rendered unconscious and taken captive. Lastly, Cecilia is at home when she notices an intruder on her roof via security cameras. She tries to flee in her car, but Amanda appears in the front and John in the back seat of the car. He then injects her and taken as well. The 4 con artists awaken chained in a room. John and Amanda step forward to confront them about their fraudulent operation, which has swindled dozens of dying individuals out of all they own. Cecilia tries to talk her way out by claiming John's case was an exception, but he sees through her deceit. He then starts his game. Valentina is the first to be tested. She is trapped with a wire saw placed in front of her neck and a box containing a Geely saw beside her. She is instructed to cut off her right leg and extract enough bone marrow to free herself. Given 3 minutes, Valentina starts cutting through her leg despite the agony and begin extracting her marrow. However, the cup doesn't fill up in time, and she is decapitated by a wire. The remaining 3 notice a phone on a cart in the center of the room, but is out of reach from everyone. Cecilia then disembowels Valentina's corpse and uses her intestines as a rope to pull the trolley close enough to reach the phone. She manages to call someone. Revealing she's been kidnapped, but Amanda interrupts her with an electric shock. During the games, Parker returns to the compound with a gun, demanding his money back after discovering the operation was a scam. As he moves through the building, John and Amanda find him and chain him to a chair. John tells Parker that he can help him get back his money, but only if Parker agrees to play by their rules. John then tells Amanda to prepare Gabriella for the next game. Although John wants Gabriella to go next, Amanda sympathizes with her as a fellow recovering drug addict. Instead, Mateo is chosen. His trap requires him to cut brain matter from his own head and drop it into a jar of enzymes. Once the matter fully dissolves, a key will be released to free him. Mateo cuts into his head and struggles through the pain. Unfortunately, he fails to complete the task in time, and a mask closes around his head, burning him to death. Gabriella is suspended in the air by shackles around her wrists and ankles, placed in front of an X-ray machine that will burn her flesh. To free herself, she must use a sledgehammer to break her wrist and ankle. Reluctantly, Gabriella smashes the bones in her hand and foot, freeing herself but suffering burns to her face, but still alive. John instructs Amanda to take Gabriella to the hospital, but before she can do so, Parker holds them both at gunpoint and demands that they release Cecilia. As they release Cecilia from her chains, she shares a kiss with Parker before disclosing that he was part of the scam from the start and that he was the one she contacted on her phone. When John says Gabriella needs to be taken to the hospital, Cecilia kills Gabriella by snapping her neck, leaving Amanda devastated. Cecilia and Parker then use John's own traps to restrain him at gunpoint, putting him in the same position Cecilia was in. Outside, the sound of Carlos kicking a soccer ball can be heard. Cecilia brings him inside and forces him to be chained up on a seesaw trap with John. John whispers to him in Spanish not to pull the lever. Cecilia and Parker activate the trap, which waterboards John and Carlos with blood. John pulls his lever, ensuring that the blood will only start to drown him. Meanwhile, Cecilia and Parker return to the office to retrieve their money. However, when Cecilia grabs a bag where the money is supposed to be, she triggers a timer set for 10 minutes. Then, Hello Zep begins to play as John and Carlos's trap is deactivated and Amanda breaks them free. Then, flashbacks reveal that John was aware all along that Parker was part of the con, so he and Amanda anticipated his arrival and actions. The bag contains documents displaying withdrawals from Cecilia's accounts, just as poison gas begins to fill the room, trapping Cecilia and Parker inside. They struggle for air as the gas burns their skin. In desperation, Cecilia stabs Parker to death to save herself, exactly as John and Amanda predicted she would. Cecilia manages to survive by sticking her head out as the countdown concludes, but she can only cry out to John in vain, remaining locked in the room with no means to call for help. John and Amanda take Carlos outside as dawn breaks. John then hands over all the money they recovered from Cecilia's scheme to Carlos. Midway through the credits, John, with the help of Mark Hoffman, tracks down Henry. John deduced that Henry was part of the scam, noticing he no longer has his fake surgical scar. John tells him, "I want to play a game," and activates a trap on Henry's body designed to cut into his stomach. Henry can only scream in terror. Thank you for watching. Like and subscribe for more interesting movie recaps.